Cry of Katipunan or Pugadlawin. It is formerly known as Cry of Balintawak, but later on it was renamed Cry of Pugadlawin, marked as the beginning of the Philippine Revolution in 1896. Andres Bonifacio, Filipino revolutionary leader and the President of the Tagalog Republic, called Father of the Philippine Revolution. He was one of the founders and later Supremo or Supreme Leader of Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng mga Anak ng Bayan, more commonly known as Katipunan. The Philippine Revolution against over 300 years of Spanish rule began with Andres Bonifacio, leader of the Katipunan, a secret revolutionary society that sought independence for the Philippines from Spanish colonial rule. In August 1896, in the sitio of Pugadlawin in Balintawak, now part of Quezon City, the Katipuneros led by Andres Bonifacio rose up in revolt by tearing up their cedulas, which became a sign of enslavement of the Filipinos. This event, called the Cry of Pugadlawin, officially regarded as the start of Philippine Revolution against Spain and the use of violence and arms. Definition of the cry. The word cry comes from the Spanish El Grito de Rebelión, cry of rebellion, or El Grito for short. Thus, the Grito de Balintawak is similar to the Grito de Dolores of Mexico in 1810, but the El Grito de Rebelión strictly refers to the decision or call to revolt. It doesn't necessarily mean shouting, unlike the Filipino term sigaw or sigaw. Originally, the term "cry" referred to the first clash between the members of Katipunan and the Civil Guards, or Guardia Civil. The cry could also refer to the tearing of cedulas, community tax certificates, in resistance to Spanish government. The cry can also be referred to in the inscriptions of "Viva la Independencia Filipina", which was literally accompanied by patriotic shouts. Different dates and places. Several accounts provide differing dates and places for the cry of Pugadlawin. Olegario Diaz, who was an officer of the Spanish Guardia Civil, stated that the cry happened in Balintawak on August 25, 1896. Historian Teodoro Calao wrote in his 1925 book entitled The Filipino Revolution that the cry took place during the final week of August 1896 at Kangkong, Balintawak. Santiago Alvarez, a Katipunero and son of Mariano Alvarez, who was the leader of Magdiwang faction in Cavite, stated in 1927 that the cry happened at Bahay Toro, now in Quezon City, August 24, 1896. Pio Valenzuela, Andres Bonifacio's close associate, declared in 1948 that the event took place on August 23, 1896 in Pugadlawin. Some of the apparent confusion about the place where it happened is in part due to the double meanings of the words Balintawak and Caloocan at the turn of the century. However, from 1908 until 1963, this event was officially recognized as having happened on August 26 in Balintawak. Ultimately, the Philippine government declared in 1963 a change from August 26 to 23 in Pugadlawin, Quezon City. Events prior to the cry of Pugadlawin. Several events occurred to strengthen the unity of Filipino people and brought a thirst for independence. These include the Cavite Mutiny of 1872, martyrdom of the Gomburza propaganda movements, and different peaceful campaigns for reforms. Dr. Rizal's exile in Dapitan and the foundation of the discovery of the KKK or Kataas-Taasan Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng mga Anak ng Bayan, Supreme and Venerable Association of the Children of the Nation. The Katipunan. The Katipunan was an offshoot from La Liga Filipina, a movement that sought to bring about political reforms in the Spanish colonial government led by Jose Rizal, Philippines' national hero. Rizal had been exiled right after his organization was formed with the first meeting. After several years had passed with essentially no charges in the Constitution, Bonifacio and the others lost all hope for some peaceful reform being brought about by La Liga Filipina. Spearheaded by Andres Bonifacio, they abandoned the organization and concentrated their efforts on the Katipunan to bring out a revolution with the use of violence and arms. Founded by Bonifacio, Ladislo Diwa, Diosdado Arellano, and others on July 7, 1892, the secret organization consisted of both male and female patrons, including Bonifacio's wife, who led the female faction. With aiming the organization's goal for independence from Spain, the Katipunan led by Andres Bonifacio started the revolution preceded by the cry of Pugadlawin. August 19, 1896, the paraphernalia used in printing Katipunan documents and other items was found revealing the existence of Katipunan. Consequently, a series of arrests of Katipuneros in Manila followed and many Filipinos were jailed or imprisoned. As many of 500 arrests were performed and many escaped the city for the fear of being captured, tortured, or killed. Tearing of Cedula. Not all statements describe the tearing of cedulas in the last days of August, but the version of Agoncillo, which was based on the later statements of Pio Valenzuela, including the others who insisted that the cry happened in Pugadlawin instead of Balintawak, was the source of the current stance of the Philippine government official commemorations. Bonifacio and many others had escaped to Pugadlawin. During their meeting at the house of Juan Ramos on August 23, 1896, Bonifacio urged his supporters to tear into pieces their cedulas, resistance certificates, as a sign of revolt against the Spanish government. Being highly motivated by the killings and arrest of their fellow members in Manila, they tore up their cedulas and let out the cry, "Long live the Philippines," which is known as the cry of Pugadlawin in Philippine history. He released a manifesto on the 28th for all their supporters in the surrounding towns to take up arms and impending strike on Manila, which would happen on August 29th. The revolt eventually increased in strength and spread to 8 provinces: Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Pampanga, Tarlac, Laguna, Batangas, and Nueva Ecija, which were subsequently represented by the 8 rays of the sun in the present Filipino flag. Death and legacy. The cry of the rebellion in Pugadlawin marked the beginning of the Philippine Revolution in 1896, which ultimately led the Philippine independence in 1898. After Bonifacio's death on May 10, 1897, in Maragondon, Cavite, General Emilio Aguinaldo continued the revolution. He declared the independence of the country from Spain on June 12, 1898 at Kawit, Cavite.